Okay, so in this video, we're gonna put together our freebie. It's the cupcake wrapper with the little flower on a stick. Let's start with the cupcake wrapper. It's actually very simple. So we've got all of these little cutouts here, okay? And what I did and what we designed this to do is you kind of just want to poke these out just a tiny little bit. Okay, I'm going to just do one set here because this design repeats throughout the little cupcake wrapper. I have a little hibachi skewer or shish kebab stick, whatever you want to call it, and I'm just kind of wrapping it around the skewer here and just kind of training these petals out just to kind of flare them out a little bit. Just makes them a lot more interesting. Okay. So you can just go ahead and do that to all of them. Now, one thing that I did on the prototype when we were putting this together is I kind of pulled on one of these a little bit too hard and actually tore it. So be really careful when you pull these out. So you can see what I'm doing there, just kind of twisting them onto the little skewer just to kind of give them a little bit of dimension. And when they're on your cupcake, they're just gonna look really cool, flared out like that. And we did dress these up with a little rhinestone in the middle of all the flowers. So you can do that as well. And to put this together, I'm actually gonna take both ends of this and run it along the edge of my desk just to kind of give it a little bit of a curve so that it doesn't fight itself when you go to glue it together. So as you can see, it's no longer flat. It's got a little bit of a bend to it. And we do have a set of score lines here, and you want to make sure that you put your glue inside that little area there. Okay, so just put a couple dots in there, and lately I've been kind of smearing the glue to even it out a little bit more. I find that it holds and dries a lot quicker for me. And we're just going to loop that around. And as you can see, there are some holes here that you can actually use as a guide as well to make sure that you've got it set right. Okay, so if you don't want to actually make the flowers, these are really easy to mass produce. I forget exactly how many you can fit on a 12 by 12 sheet of paper, but it's a good amount. Okay, so just hold that in place while it dries. And there's your little cupcake wrapper. Okay, very simple. And fits a standard size cupcake like the ones you get from the grocery store. Okay, so there's that. Okay, so now onto our little 3D flower. You want to go ahead and get a little mouse pad or something to work on. And I have this little stylus tool that I'm going to use to help shape the flower. But we can go ahead and begin with our little stamen piece here. And you are going to want to get some Scotch tape. Okay. And if you guys made our zinnia compote, you're probably somewhat familiar with this process. I'm just going to grab a little bit of tape, and I can actually cut it in half. I don't need that much tape. Okay, and what we're going to do is I'm going to just put this on here real quick, and I'm going to glue the hibachi skewer to the end of that. Okay, and it does kind of help to, actually, let me just grab another little piece of tape here. You want to tape both ends to the stick like that. Okay, just to make sure that it really has a nice grip on that stick. Okay, and then what we're going to do is we're going to put glue in this little area here. Okay, you don't want a lot because as you roll this, it will begin to kind of smear outward. So I'm just taking and rolling this onto our little stick here, our little skewer. Make sure you keep it nice and even. Okay. And then when you get to the end there, just hold it in place. Got a little bit of glue. Shouldn't have done that on my mouse pad. And just hold that in place. Give it a good chance to dry. Okay. And then while you have it, you can kind of flare these little stamen pieces out, just to kind of make them a little more interesting. Okay, and then you can put this off to the side for now while it dries, and we can go ahead and work on our little flower here. Okay, now if you want, you can go ahead and ink these. It's totally up to you. And the flower's made up of 2 layers. The outer layer is going to be a little spread out, and then the inner layer is going to be more compact. So what we're going to go ahead and do is, and actually I've got my texture side down, because as I curl these up, you want to be able to see the texture. Okay, so this is going to be my outer petal. This is going to be my inner petal. And I'm going to go ahead and, using this tool here, just kind of do some circles in there, just clockwise or counterclockwise, it doesn't matter. Okay, this is going to be my outer one, so I don't want it to bend in too much. This is going to be my inner one. I'm going to add a little bit more force and try to curl it in a lot more if possible. Okay, so that one's curled in just a little bit more. We can flatten that one out a tiny bit. And then also, what I did on the one that you saw on the website, especially for the outer petal, I kind of curled it like that. Okay, just on one edge there, just like that. And if you want, actually one thing that I recommend, one thing that Ron taught me, and one thing that nature taught me is, you know, being random with the petals is always a good thing, because as much geometry and symmetry there is in nature, rarely do you see things that are completely perfect. Okay, so I'm just kind of curling these a little bit, and then you do want to kind of fold them and bend them in the middle as well. Just a tiny bit. You can do it more once we kind of begin the assembly. Okay, so with this one here, again, I am going to go ahead and kind of bend in the middle a little bit. Okay, try to make it a round bend, I guess, for lack of a better description. Just kind of pinching the middle there. Okay, so you see how that kind of looks. Okay, and then the idea is to just kind of overlap these and glue them together. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put a little bit of glue on this little area here. Okay, and just kind of glue it to its neighbor, like so. And just hold that in place while it dries. Okay, and I'm going to do that again. Just going to put a little bit of glue there. You can use hot glue if you don't want to sit around and wait for this stuff to dry. Okay, it will actually dry a lot faster if you use hot glue. Okay, so I'm just kind of holding that in place until it gets a good grip. With regular tacky glue, especially with these flowers, because there's so much resistance, it does take a lot longer to dry, but that looks like it's working okay. And then you can see what that looks like there on the outside. So I'm going to go ahead and continue doing that all the way around. And then that inner flower, it's going to be a lot more compact. It's going to be kind of jammed together a lot more. Okay. And then we're almost there. Throw a little bit more glue on the inside there. And bring that in. So you see what that's starting to look like. Okay. Smush that in place. Get that last one in there. Put a tiny little bit of glue just on the edge of that petal. Okay. And looks like I had a little bit of resistance there, and one of those petals came undone. But you know what? That's actually okay. You don't even need to have them all glued down. It'll still look really cool. Okay, so that should be good. We'll let that one dry. And now again, with this one here, and I'm going to use my stylus here to kind of really get a good bend on this one. I'm going to bend these petals in more like that, because this one's going to be really squished together. Okay, so I'm just kind of really creasing this and bending it in like that. Okay, and then kind of mess around with this before we actually even glue anything to kind of figure out what kind of look it's going to have. Okay, that to me looks pretty cool. And then when we take that and pop it in there, that's going to look really pretty. Okay, so kind of scrunch it together to decide how you want it to look. Okay, that looks pretty good to me. And now keep in mind that you don't want to scrunch it in too much, because ultimately the little stamen piece is going to go in here too. So we want to leave a little bit of room for that. Okay, so that looks good to me. And then basically, once you do that, kind of take a look, just do a quick visual on how much you want to overlap each petal to achieve that look. Okay, and it almost looks to me like each of these petals is going about halfway in on its neighbor. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit of glue on the back side of this one. Okay, and I'm going to go about halfway into this other petal here. Okay, so I'm about halfway in to this petal here, and I'm just going to push and hold that. You don't want to put too much glue back here, because you want to, you know, leave some texture and depth there so you can actually distinguish between the two petals. Okay, so I'm just kind of holding that in place, and I'm going to repeat that process again on this petal. So I'm going to put a little bit of glue on the back side of this petal here, and I'm going to go about halfway in on this petal, and I'm going to push and hold that in place, again making sure that you leave a little gap there, because we want that shadow, we want that depth, we want that texture and dimension. Okay, so that's looking pretty awesome so far. Okay, and with this one here, maybe I'm going to go a little bit more than halfway, just to add a little variance and some randomness. Okay, so I'm going to go like that. Okay, so just hold that in place. Again, there's going to be some resistance on these, so if you want to use hot glue, you totally can, because it does set a lot faster. And I probably should have done that for the video, because I am kind of going through this quickly, and it may not fully set on video here. I think this little part right here is kind of coming undone for me, because I'm not being patient enough with the glue. Okay, so again, with this petal here, I'm just going to go ahead and put a little bit of glue on the back of it, and I'm going to go a little bit more than halfway there. Yeah, and with hot glue, you probably don't even need to add as much tension and pressure on the two petals with your fingers to get them to stick, because it just kind of almost instantly grabs. Okay, so we've got, you kind of get the idea. You're just going to repeat that process again to get that last petal in there. Okay, and why don't I just go ahead and just do that to this little petal here. Get that in there. My glue's kind of clogged up a little bit here. I'm going to add a nice little blob in here just to make sure that I get enough glue on these petals here. And I'm going to close that up. Just hold that while it dries. Okay, so you can see what that petal looks like compared to the other one. Okay, so I'm not actually going to let that set completely, but what we're going to do is we're going to put glue on the bottom of this, and make sure that you get, kind of want to cake it with glue here, because it's not exactly flat and we really want it to grip. Okay, so go ahead and pop that one inside of the first one we did. Okay, so there's your pretty little flower. So pretty. Okay, so let that dry. We have a little leaf element here, Okay, and there's some score lines in there, so you can go ahead and crease those, kind of like that. And then you can also take your stamen piece, the other end of it, and maybe curl the leaf a little bit. And again, you can ink these if you want. Okay, so this thing's pretty much ready to be assembled at this point. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a generous amount of glue on the inside of the flower. Okay, so as I was saying, we're going to put a nice generous amount of glue in the middle of this flower on the inside there. And what we're going to do, I still have the stamen part on an entire hibachi skewer, and that's okay because eventually I'm just going to chop this off, but you're going to feed it through the little hole. If I can find it. There it is. Okay. And bring it down until it's flush with the bottom of that flower. Okay. And then you can go ahead and put some glue on the bottom of this. Just kind of twirl it in your finger while you're applying the glue. I might have put a little bit too much on there. And then we're going to feed the leaf part through and attach it like so. Okay, so let that completely dry, and there is your beautiful little dimensional flower. And then figure out, based on how big your cupcake is, where you're going to chop this. You can literally just crack these off, just kind of twirl it off. If you want, you can actually probably use some scissors or a little craft saw just to chop that off, and then pop that right into your cupcake along with your cupcake holder. And you've got yourself a beautiful little way to present a cupcake at a wedding, a little girl's birthday, or whatever, Mother's Day even. Really cute and absolutely free on the website. Stay on top of all things Dreaming Tree and engage with us today. Get the latest news and enter in our giveaways on Facebook. Get inspired by following us on Pinterest. Be the first to see our new product launches on Instagram. Do you prefer Twitter? Yep, we're there too. Watch our beautiful product trailers and assembly tutorials on YouTube. For more information, visit www.3dsvg.com. Live, craft, love,